Okay. Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you're dialing in from. Welcome to this week's Koala Wednesday webinar. And I'm really, really excited for this one because it is let me go back a little bit. It is one of our showcase webinars where it's not just me talking about what's going on in the world of AI, but we're really excited to welcome in a guest. For those of you that this is your first Koala Wednesday webinar, we get together at 3 o'clock UK time every Wednesday, and we have an hour to talk about something that is sort of top of mind, either with our clients, maybe it's something that we're working on internally. It's such a fast moving space, and this gives us a time each week to walk through something that we think is useful both for you personally and for your business. And for us here at Koala, one of the things that has really transformed the work that we're doing is a tool called Granola, which we're going to be diving into deeper. For any of you that are in product roles, you may have come across a thing called the Sean Ellis test, sometimes known as the product market fit test. And it's a way for companies to kind of measure and assess whether they've got sustainable growth. And the question that gets posed is, if this thing was taken away from you, how would you feel? Would you be very disappointed? Would you be mildly disappointed? Would you not be disappointed at all? Or have you stopped using this thing completely? And the test says that if you're more than 40% of your customers say, I would be very disappointed, then you've got product market fit and you're growing. And I was thinking about this because if someone took away Granola from me personally and for our team, I would be very disappointed. And so with that, I'm going to introduce Nick. Nick is head of customer success at Granola. He's going to be walking us through a few bits and pieces in a minute. But Nick, maybe you'd like to say a few words, say hello, and introduce yourself and your role.
Yeah, thanks so much, Charlie. And what an introduction. Yeah, my name is Nick Taylor. I'm the head of customer success, as Charlie said, at Granola. What that means is it's my job, hopefully, at the end of this webinar, to have you fully understand how Granola works and how to get the best out of it. Meaning today, I'm hopefully going to give you an understanding of what the practical uses might be of Granola and some tips and tricks along the way as well.
Fantastic. Thanks, Nick. And yeah, we've got a sort of loose agenda that we're going to go through. We're going to swap screens in a minute and share to Nick's screen a little bit about how Granola uses Granola, but also thinking about it through the enterprise lens when we're thinking about our clients who are in a range of different industries. How do they really embed this into their way of working? Towards the end, I'm going to show you a little bit about how we're using Granola here at Koala, and not just about our human team members using Granola, but also our wonderful Koala agents that we have that are also using Granola as well. And then at the end, we'll just wrap up with a few lessons learned. I'm sure Nick will have some, and I've got a few thoughts about things that we've picked up along the way. So hopefully we can help you if you're early in your Granola journey to have a think through about what this might mean to you and to your business. Now, we're in Zoom. I'm sure you've used Zoom before. Up at the top of your screen or the bottom of your screen, depending on what device you're on, you're going to see that you've got a chat bar, and so you can chat or ask questions in that. And then there's also a Q&A bar as well. And I will endeavour to keep my eye on that. Caitlin, our human colleague, is also on the call as well, and she'll keep an eye on that. Don't feel you need to wait until the end for questions. If there's something that Nick or I are talking about and you want to dive straight into, then ask your question and we'll come to it. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I think Nick is going to share his screen, and we are going to get into the tool and learn a little bit about Granola and call transcription.
Amazing. Yeah, let's dive right in. And as Shai said, I think let's do the best thing possible, which is get the tool in front of us and get going and learn a little bit more about it. Before I dive into kind of the practical uses of Granola, let's just talk a little bit about what Granola is used for and why it's helpful. I think many of us have used lots of different notepad tools in our probably our journey. We probably some of us even still writing some notes and find that incredibly useful. I think Granola does one of two things really, really well. One is it kind of creates that notepad experience that you're probably very used to with like an Apple Notes and an Evernote. It also sits in the background of a call that you're part of, and it transcribes all the conversation that's going on. And at the end of the meeting, it will combine your meeting notes that you've written, if you have wanted to write those down, as well as that call recording or that call transcription, and it will generate a summary of the meeting based on that transcript and running it through a few different models that we've kind of engineered on our side. And we'll come up with a really nice overview of that. And what better way to kind of show you that end to end than ultimately diving right in. Now, Granola is connected to your calendar. So, one of the benefits I always hear about from senior leaders that I talk to at some of these enterprises is they're always late for meetings. But when they use Granola, they're actually early because it reminds you about a minute before that meeting that it's going to get started and you can dive right in. And so, yeah, as you can see here, we've got the calendar connected. So, tomorrow I've got a few events going on in this demo account that we're using, and it would remind me just before that call starts, hey, let's hop on the call and let's start transcribing. But for the purposes of this, let's just dive in and get a note started straight away. So, I'm going to go ahead into this little quick note button here. And yeah, this experience should seem very familiar to most of you. I am a dark mode user, I will say, so apologies. It's not as light and bright as some of you may have seen it before if you've seen Granola. But yeah, I'll go ahead and say, look, this is a demo, and I'm going to go ahead and write some notes saying, Charlie kicked us off. Remember, ooh, I can't type. That is a theme of this demo. Remember some learnings for the end, perhaps as well. And I'm going to make sure that, oh, actually, I should really remember to send a thank you to the team afterwards. And I've gone ahead and added a few of these notes. We've talked about Granola for maybe no more than 30 or 40 seconds so far. And it will kind of have listened to that and then kind of enhance those notes. But let's take our fingers away from the keyboard and start talking a little bit more so that I can include some notes in this process that I haven't typed down. So you'll see here at the bottom we've got a lovely little kind of waveform going on. If I click into that, you can actually see the transcript as it's going on, as I'm doing umming and ahhing, and I'm probably being stopped by the transcript live transcribing in front of me. It's a little bit distracting, but you can see it happening live right here. There is a monologue. You can see that I have been talking for a little while now, so it's a block of text, but you can
And
ultimately,
Nick, if
yeah,
if I'm talking, is that going to
there
come
you go.
out of
You've got it.
of this as well? Okay, cool. So it
Yeah.
knows that I'm a different speaker.
Exactly. And as we kind of developed Granola, we wanted to kind of have like a you versus the rest of the speakers. And we kind of pick up, because you're talking, Charlie, on Zoom, I'm pulling that audio in via Zoom as well. And so if you're in person, if you're on Zoom, you can kind of get both, that we can capture both. So it works for in-person meetings as well as over Zoom as well.
And
Now we've
Nick, in
yeah,
a sorry if I ask
no,
a couple of
please
questions.
jump in.
So in a meeting when there's multiple people,
Yeah.
is there any sort of best practice about it identifying different speakers? Should we get people to say, "Hi, I'm Charlie"?
Yeah.
Does that help or not?
Yeah, I think one of the things that works really well is if at the start of the meeting you can kind of capture that, introductions part of the call, that's always helpful. And when you're wrapping up a call, if you can kind of maybe reiterate the action items or even ask Granola, we'll talk about the chat in a second, ask Granola in the chat, what are the action items at the end of this call, or what have we agreed to do at the end of this call? Granola can surface those to you and then just say, okay, after this, Charlie is going to make sure this is uploaded to YouTube, and Nick is going to make sure he sends a thank you to the team afterwards, etc. Granola will take that. Obviously, it's in the transcript, as you can kind of
Mhm.
see below me, and make sure it's perfectly captured. That it's a great point. Kind of bookending the meeting will give it as much context as possible. Yeah. Great. Well, we've kind of been talking for a little while, and Charlie and I have been talking. So let's kind of get to that little kind of magic moment immediately. So I'm going to stop the transcript right there. When you leave a meeting, it will automatically stop that transcript. But here I'm doing it manually, and you'll see this enhanced notes button. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And what we'll do is it will analyze the transcript and it will start building those notes for us. So you'll see here, it's kind of building out what we call sections, and it's also building out kind of a few different sub bullets and bullets underneath it. So here we talked about some key features, some best practices. These were the notes that I took from the meeting, and ultimately it kind of generated a nice quick summary for us. I should say at any point, if you want to switch, Charlie, maybe you really just want your notes, you want to switch back, you've got this lovely little My Notes button here. And if you click that, you can kind of go back to your notes as well. And maybe I want to make some changes. Like, actually, you know what? There are some action items, right? We've kind of agreed a few. I'm going to do a one square bracket and another square bracket and a space, and I'll get a little kind of to do button. Now, if you do that, you can make sure that you can add in your own to dos. I also have a little kind of dash, and I can get some bullets. I can format with kind of italicized or bold or underlined as well. Those are all my notes. So you can format your notes really, really well. And Granola will try and pick those up and make those apparent in the generated notes as well. Now, when we were talking, Charlie, we said like, what happens like if I've forgotten maybe the takeaway items at the end of the meeting? So let's ask Granola like, what are the takeaways from this meeting? Now we have a kind of agentic search. It's going to kind of look through the transcript, run a quick summary, and give that to me. So here it's kind of talking about this is exactly kind of how we think about granola. This is what we talked about. Here are some concrete reminders that I saved in my notes as well. And here's kind of a quick summary, and I can say what are the follow ups, and it will go ahead and say send a thank you, capture the learnings, and then start with some introductions and make sure we restate those action items. I can even, if I want to, maybe I want to do a quick follow up there, Charlie, I can ask it to write a follow up email. And this we'll come back to a little bit later. It's called a recipe. That's kind of like a pre written prompt. It's kind of a really hacky way of getting a lot out of granola really quickly. So yep, it's written me a quick email. You'll see here. It's like, thanks for joining. Here's a quick step, next step, and look forward to staying in touch. Obviously, my name is not Lucy, but this is the demo account for all intents and purposes here. And I do get a few questions sometimes, and I think we talked about this a little bit, Charlie. Is like, what models do you use? Well, we have kind of like a lot of the leading models available. You'll see here we everything from the kind of big three, and you can switch between those models. We'll kind of default select whichever model we think is performing the best at this time
Mm.
currently as well.
Nick, just a quick question that's come in
Yeah.
from Andy about offline meetings, so in-person meetings. Can this handle that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Granola will be available to have those kind of in-person meetings. What I would say is you would still need an internet connection in order for us to transcribe, just because we're sending that kind of transcript off to a third party. So if you don't have internet access, it won't be able to transcribe, and you won't be able to record during that meeting. But if you're not connected to a Zoom or something like that, you can always have an in-person meeting. You're in the kind of situation where maybe you bump into a colleague. You're like, actually, let's just get Granola started and kind
Mm.
of have it run in the background. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, Andy. I mean, I use the iPhone app a lot, and so whenever I'm in an in-person meeting, I will be like, do you mind if I granola?"
Yeah.
And then I'll sort of physically put my iPhone in the table so that people know that it's recording, and I find that's really useful. We'll get into some other use cases in a minute, but sort of complex sort of customer discovery meeting, someone explaining a process that we're going to build something, granolaing all the way, and using the phone on the desk is super helpful.
Yeah, agreed. Definitely. I think the mobile app, which I should mention is a little different from the desktop app, even allows you to make outgoing calls using Granola. So I have a number of customers I talked to. One of them who said that they were doing a house renovation, and he would call his builder on the phone because he would always have a record of what was discussed at that point. He could always refer back to. Yeah, and he would always be able to send those notes through to sort of keep everything on track, shall we say, as well. Cool, good stuff. Yeah, so this is a kind of an initial note. Again, very kind of quick note that we created, but there are a couple of things I think to point out. Firstly, as you said, you can kind of chat with the meeting. Second is you can always share the meeting directly with people. So here in this demo account, let's say I wanted to share that with my colleague Zara, who's one of these fake users here. I can go ahead and share that with her. Now, if Zara has an account, this will pop up as something that's been shared with her. She'll have full access to be able to read the notes and chat with the transcript as well as you've seen. If she doesn't have a account, this would invite her if we're at the same company. And perhaps if you're not at the same company and you want to share those notes publicly, you can copy this link here and share that with someone, and that will give them a link to the web page that is pretty much the same view as this, with the ability to kind of chat with the note as well. You can, of course, restrict the ability to share notes to only people that have been invited or people that are in your domain, for example, as well. So we have some, security features around that, but you're able to kind of share notes with your customers or maybe with contractors or external parties as well, quite easily, all through Granola as
Mm.
well. Yeah. Um, there's a bunch of integrations we have, but a couple that I find really helpful is you can connect Slack to Granola, and you can fire out a very quick message into a Slack channel. For example, we've connected it to a Slack channel for our demo here, and you can just say, this is a quick example, and then just post that directly to Slack. And that'll go ahead and post this meeting in there. And then anyone that, if I've set the restrictions up correctly, anyone who perhaps is in my company or has access to that link or has been invited maybe directly will be able to just jump in and see those notes as well. So
Mm.
very easy to kind of share company knowledge with each other as well.
Just we've kind of touched on this a little bit with me saying like when I'm in a meeting room, I'll say, "Do you mind if I granola?"
Mm.
Are you able to touch on a little bit of sort of permissions, privacy, differences between this versus note takers that come and join meetings?
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the benefits of Granola is it doesn't join a meeting, and a lot of our users like it for that. Obviously, definitely in Europe and in certain states in the US, there's laws regarding kind of being recorded without authorization, and so it's always best practice as you mentioned, with your mobile app where you can just say, hey, I'm going to transcribe this with Granola. We do have a bunch of handy features that we can enable for our enterprise and business customers where you can give people a heads up before the meeting, or I have this new feature I'm testing internally where you can even have your webcam have like a little marker saying that Granola is recording. I think you saw that the other day, Charlie. So we're
Mm,
working on a bunch of features to make it more explicit if you want to, as well. But I think the key feature that I would say is most important when you're thinking about your privacy and kind of sharing is making sure that you've gotten consent and making sure that you've announced Granola in some way. And we provide different methods to do that, as I mentioned. So
mm.
yeah, it's something that you can always call out at the start of the meeting if you're ever worried. And I think that works pretty well. Most people that we
Yeah.
interact with kind of just go, yeah, that's fine, and move on afterwards. Yeah.
The way that I've been phrasing it, and you might tell me that I'm wrong,
Mhm.
is that with something like a gong or a fixer or something that's actually recording the meeting, it's recording the audio of the person and it's recording the video of the person, and therefore certain laws apply to that. And with Granola, it is not recording the video, it is not recording the audio, it is taking notes, and that there is a difference in terms of how the law handle those two different things. And so I've not been when it's just recording in a meeting like this. I've not been sort of explicitly saying, "Oh, by the way, I'm transcribing." Is that incorrect, or is there this differentiation because you're not actually recording the other people?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously not a legal expert. I will highlight that, but
Yeah,
the
yeah. Caveat, caveat.
but yeah, the common kind of to your point, the common piece is that Granola is transcribing, and we to your point, we're not storing any kind of recording, and we're not making available any kind of video of the call or anything like that. We're simply sending off the audio to a third party provider who gives us some text, and we're storing that text as a transcript.
Mm,
In that, we're not necessarily subject to things like wiretapping laws, etc. as well. But we always advise to be, if you're ever worried, be kind of on the safe side of cautious and just call it out at the start of a call
Yeah.
if you feel
Yeah.
worried in any way. But yeah, you're right, Charlie. It definitely is something where it's one of those things where we're not on under the same sort of banner as the other
Yeah.
that are out there.
I think that we'll move on off this topic in a second, but one of the reasons why I think this is so important is that I've worked in teams where, and I love Gong. Gong is a great tool for sales teams, and then maybe you've got other tools like other sort of call recording, sort of bots that join meetings. And the behavior that I see is that people are immediately trying to kick their own call recorders out of the meeting. So, oh, sorry about that, sorry about that, because they recognize that they're not going to have the conversation that they want to have because it's quite visible that 1/3 of the screen is taken up by this big, like, I'm recording. And so everyone's on edge. And that's one of the reasons why we sort of fell in love with this non-invasive type of like I'm here to take notes, but I don't need to like take up a third of the screen. So if anyone that's watching is thinking about like why would I use this over something else, it's a bit of the human behavior is certainly something that we've seen. One quick question as well from the chat, which is about an Android app, and I don't know if you've got any intel or updates on anything there.
A good question, and I will say that internally we have a version of the Android app working. We hired a Android developer maybe a month ago or so. Been quietly working on like an MVP internally, so I can't give you exact dates, but I will tell you that I have seen and played with an Android app internally.
I have
So
seen
it's
it
coming.
live.
I have, and maybe a bit of hot off the press, perhaps even a watch app, an Apple Watch app coming soon
Ah,
as well, which would be fun. Yeah, so the definitely different peripherals we're kind of playing about with internally, and those are the two that are next up. Yeah.
brilliant. Great. So
Yeah.
what's next? So we're in
Yeah.
our meeting. We've got our notes.
Exactly. So we shared with a few people. This is our meeting, and I should say that by default, your Granola notes are private to you. You're kind of in control of them, and it's where you choose to share them is kind of the kind of next piece. So we've shared this note directly. That makes a lot of sense. I shared that in this case with Zara, and I've copied the link over to someone. So let's return to the home screen. You'll see now that this is a demo meeting that I just did is by default here in the kind of list of meetings that I've been doing, and you'll see it says like private here. So let's just move our like eyes over to the left hand side on the sidebar here. I'm just going to collapse a couple of things to help explain this concept. But you have this concept of what we call spaces, and so by default everything goes into the My Notes section. And if we jump into here, this is where your private notes are. This is where you can create some private folders, and you'll see here this is where the this is a demo ends up. And so again, it's kind of a question of what do you want to do with that meeting? Like, where does it belong? What should it? Do you want to share it with a group of people rather than just a single person, or you want to send that link? And I'll explain why folders are very important in a second, but maybe we can think about some folders for it as well. Now you'll see here I have a few different folders on the left hand side, and it's actually very easy to go ahead and create a folder. I'll just do this here. I can choose some icons, some emojis. I can set a quick description for it, and I can go ahead and create it. For example, I have this one-to-ones section here. Again, the colleague Zara that I mentioned, this person seems to be having, Lucy seems to be having lots of conversations with Zara, or have been part of some conversations with Zara as well. So, when we have many conversations in one folder, the thing that we can do is ask questions across many meetings, not just in a single meeting. And so here, let's assume that maybe I'm a manager of Zara, and I want to know like what is top of mind for Zara. Maybe I'm prepping for my next one-to-one. Maybe I want to just kind of make sure I'm sense checking like what Zara is working on, and go through that. So yeah, here our agent's going to look ahead through all the meetings with Zara, and it's going to come up with a very quick summary based on that latest coffee chat. There are some deals that Zara seems to be working on, so we can assume that maybe in this case Zara is a salesperson. And yeah, you can see here that Greywood has stalled due to a reorg. So maybe something we can ask is what can I do to unblock Greywood? It seems here that Dom couldn't champion anything. Now, what we've done a recent update to our chat and we've made it a lot more agentic. And what that allows us to do is not just look at the notes there, but also look at other notes outside of that folder that we have access to and add in a lot more context. So here we've got obviously the notes that are in here, but we've gotten a few additional things. So here are some action items that we've got. A few people that seem to be new to me based on the previous context I had. And then again, Granola's come up with some suggestions not from the notes here. So it's May now. Maybe it's been a while. Let's re-engage with Dom. Maybe things have changed. If we've still blocks, maybe we can go to Claire Yates. So ultimately, like our chat is getting smarter and smarter and even pulling in context outside of those folders. But folders really help us kind of think, how do I want to kind of slice and dice my meetings and how can I get the most out of them? So the benefit of sharing again in the kind of my notes section with the folders is you can kind of work on maybe a project together or work in one-to-ones, or maybe you want to sort of folderize your meetings around a specific company or something like that. That gives you the ability to kind of chat across them.
Nick,
Um,
when you think about how you're structuring folders,
yeah.
let's say I'm a manager and I've got 10 people, 8 people in my team. I see you've got a one-to-ones folder there. How do you think about that versus having a folder for each team member, a folder for just the team? Are there any trade-offs?
Yeah, I think maybe maybe let's jump ahead a little bit because I think to answer that question there are some really helpful views that are always hidden at the bottom of this page. And let me just move my zoom icon to the top there. So we have these kind of like four little icons at the bottom, and these two here are perhaps some of the most powerful views that we have in Granola, but perhaps some of the most unknown. And if I click this view, this is a view of people, and these are people I've either spoken to or I've had notes shared with me that contain these people as part of the calendar invite. So here you can see Zara, I have 21 notes here. You can see there's a person called Jonathan that seems to be different. If I click that, you'll see I have a few different meetings that I'm part of that Jonathan, I seem to be either part of those meetings where I've had directly with Jonathan as well, and they may be shared with me. So here I have a daily stand up with Jonathan that seems to be part of the sales calls. There's more daily stand ups I seem to be part of. The team meetings folder, I seem to be part of a product council with Jonathan as well. And I have a one-to-one or a handover with Jonathan as well. And that's a way of kind of, again, getting a good view across what someone is doing across many different meetings, not just in the folder that you've kind of built for them.
Hmm.
And I think to kind of compound that, when you think about companies, we have this company view here that really helps you kind of search across different companies. So again, maybe if I type in Meridian, you'll see here I can see all the different calls that have been had with Meridian. All the way from an initial introduction to us closing a deal with them, for example, in this demo. And through that, I can do a bunch of different things. Like I can say, I built like a little recipe for myself. I called a handover. I can just run this like pre-written prompt essentially. And as someone who's in post sales, this is my like biggest bugbear. I don't know if I think you used to work in sales there, Charlie. So I'm sure you've
Hmm.
had to do many handovers in your life. But
Yeah.
you can kind of pre-write one automatically using the context across that company in Granola. So you'll see
Amazing.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I guess I mean, it's implicit in what you're saying, but with the caveat that you'd have to have access to those calls either being shared with you for it to be able to pull that.
Exactly. And I think that's the important piece that we want to talk about here. This team space here, this note loop team space, this space is something that's shared with your entire workspace. So if you're putting notes here, you want to make sure that everyone in your current Granola workspace has access to them. So things like one-to-ones wouldn't go here or sensitive information. But in Granola, we use this space for things like user interviews from our product team and our engineering team. Our sales team puts our customer conversations there. We have our stand-ups and our kind of product decisions are all live in that space. Meaning, as someone who joined Granola at the start of the year, I was able to go in and say, what are our top 5 pain points for our customers today? What is like the most recent decisions that we've made in certain areas of the product? And I can pull all of that context without going to ask a bunch of people. I can just chat to Granola and get all of that information immediately because it's shared in this team space. I have access to everything. And again, you can create folders here to help you kind of manage that process as well. Good stuff. There are a couple of other things I definitely wanted to show, and perhaps we'll just head back to that meeting very quickly. And I think this comes to a situation where you're having lots of meetings, and they're probably a little bit repetitive, and you want to start thinking about how can I get more from those meetings. So there are kind of two very distinct things I'd definitely recommend investing time in. And the firstly is if you head onto this like little sparkle at the top, you'll see a little drop down. And again, we have here a few different templates that we provide out of the box. So if I click this demo template, just keep in mind, take a quick snapshot in your mind of what's on the left here for how we've laid out the notes. I'll go ahead and click that, and it will regenerate the notes in front of you, and you can see here what is the purpose, some key features, and as we scroll down, yeah. Some additional kind of information that we've captured here, but you'll see how the notes are restructured and a lot more different context is added as well. I think that templates are a really good way of thinking about how can I get the most out of my meetings and how can I even reformat my meetings without having to like worry about them a lot. So you'll see here is a very quick template I made earlier, which is like I'm running a demo. It's a simple meeting. What's the purpose and what are the key features? But for instance, we also provide like a one-to-one, for example. What's top of mind in that one-to-one for your other person, any updates or wins, etc. These are things that are really simple to build. And actually, as Granola, we provide a bunch of these out of the box. So we have some hiring templates, for example, or product demos that you can use as well. But it's also really simple to go ahead and build a template. You just go in and give Granola the context, choose what sections and the context to each section. You can have as many sections as you like. And then you can choose to publish with all your workspace if you want everyone to get use of that template as well. And I think templates work really well. I use them a lot, for example, when I'm doing hiring and I want to kind of have everyone across the same kind of scorecard, or I have user interviews and I want kind of to keep the same format across the road, or one-to-ones as well, kind of the same format, and I want to make sure I cover everything as part of that meeting. So template is very powerful, and I think I also get Claude to help me build some of those templates as well. So I get Claude to write me the context and write me the sections I think might be useful, and I just copy and paste that into Granola.
Mm.
I have that top of mind.
Yeah, we're loving templates, and I'm a stickler for every meeting should have an agenda. Like we shouldn't be meeting if we haven't got an agenda. And for so many of these recurring meetings, whether it's a one-to-one, whether it's hiring, or a common one for us, and I'll maybe show this later on when I share my screen, is a project launch workshop. We've got a very structured project launch workshop. It has a series of topics that we're going to go through, and that agenda is sort of defined. And so you pair up the agenda that is shared in the Google Calendar and what we work through in the meeting with the corresponding templates. And the two things come together so beautifully because the meeting is following the agenda. And then at the end, you click, right, use the project launch workshop template. And it's like, oh, it's broken everything down exactly as we discussed it. And like, ta-da! The two things working so well together.
That's definitely, yeah. I think that people love to see yeah, like an agenda and then everything written out under the agenda. It's kind of like I've the perfect meeting at that point. You've
Mm.
hit everything to a T. Great. Well, there's one more thing I wanted to really showcase, which is recipes, and we've talked about recipes a little bit. And I kind of said, hey, this is kind of pre-written prompts, and we provided a number of recipes out of the box. You can see a few here. I am a person who always craves coaching and craves like really in-depth coaching. I don't know if anyone else does, but I want the like most specific, even sometimes the most critical feedback. And one I recommend if you're a bit like me, a bit of a masochist, you can use the Coach Me Matt, which is a guy called Matt Mockery, who's a very famous business coach. I think he coaches Sam Altman, for example. And he's worked to use his Matt Mockery method and translated that into a prompt. Now, don't worry, you don't need to have as complex prompts as this, but you can see the amount of work we've kind of gone into in building this prompt. And when you run this prompt, which is just very simple in Granola, you just need to do slash coach me Matt. You get a very in-depth review of the last 7 days and where you can kind of improve. And that's kind of like the very big complex version, but it can be super simple as well. There's one that I absolutely love, which is you can tell a joke. Just slash joke, and Granola will come up with a joke for you on the spot. Or if you're a busy, hardworking person that is jumping between meetings, maybe your kids need something or parcel gets delivered partway through a meeting, there's the what did I miss, which just gives you the last 5 minutes of what's happened in the meeting and just gives you a very quick summary so you can just catch up immediately. And the way of thinking about recipes is, do you want to run a query across multiple meetings, or do you want to look at one specific meeting? And we kind of batch those here, as you can see, across meetings, before, during, or after a meeting. And so we have a bunch that I'd recommend you checking out. And we have, obviously, we use a bunch of different recipes that we build internally. For example, here I have like a post call wrap up that I built the other day. You'll see again, this is a very in-depth recipe here. But in actuality, and to give you a little secret, I get Claude to build all my recipes for me. What I do is I tell Claude, look, I want to build a prompt, and this is what I want to do, and I'm doing it in Granola. Can you come up with a good version of it? It builds it, and the best bit about recipes is you can go try them on a previous meeting. So I'll go try this on. This is a demo, and you'll see here it's going to go try that prompt, and yeah, it's built me some next steps. It's built me some things in a CRM, etc. So you can just iterate. And I find, I
Mm.
don't know about you, Charlie, but I'm a bit of a builder. I like to see progress and keep things moving. So for me, that worked really well, just to kind
Yeah.
of get hold of stuff.
That's great. I know in a minute we're going to jump into things like the MCP and accessing this data, so like using it. But just want to sort of wrap up this bit
Yeah.
about like capturing information, and certainly the journey that I've been on. When I worked in sales teams, maybe sort of 4 or 5 years ago, and it was all about like rolling out call recording and like who in the team is going to have access to this call recording, and then getting permission from the client, like almost having to sell to them as why it was useful for us to call record. I think we've sort of moved into this new world where everything is transcribed. There really shouldn't be any meeting, internal or external, that is not transcribed. I really think like when I'm speaking with a vendor today, if I'm going to explain my process and my team, and I'm going to spend 2 hours talking you through that, I want more than the little doodle that you've put in your notebook as a way of you recording that. Like, I want you to transcribe it so that you can, I'm not going to have to explain this to someone else. And so I definitely see a little bit of a trend there. And then as we're going to talk a little bit more about MCP in a minute, that it's everyone's responsibility. It's your job to transcribe the meetings that you're in. That if these conversations are happening and they're not being added to the organization's sort of collective intelligence, there's a bit of a miss there. I don't know if you're sort of seeing this in your enterprise clients, where it's moved from call recording is something for a few select salespeople to actually we need to gather this from everyone and every client.
Yeah, I think everyone's moving towards that kind of, for want of a lack of a better term, the second brain initiative, where you want to get that company context across the whole company, not just in silos. To your point, like in sales teams, you want to get it in kind of one format, one source, and you want to make it available where
Mm,
possible. So people are building agents off the back of that. People are using that to build automations, etc. But you need to pipe that context into somewhere, or have a reliable source of context. And I
mm,
think Granola is seeing itself as a bit of that context layer realistically going forward, and definitely for meetings and conversations internally, we can provide a lot of rich context to a lot of these tools, which we'll
mm.
talk about, as you say, in a second. Yeah.
Well, let's switch gears then, and also this adds on to a question that's come in from Kai, which leads into this. What are some of the different use cases for Granola MCP and Claude versus just setting up a recipe within Granola?
Yeah, great question. And I think the kind of question you want to ask yourself is, should I use the MCP or not? Or should I build a recipe, is, what do you want to do inside Granola, and does Granola have access to all of that information today? And if the answer is, I want to combine like lots of different sources of information, then I can probably go and do that in something like Claude. Or perhaps if I want to create like a an artifact or a document, then obviously I'm going to want to probably build something like that in Lovable or Claude as well. So to your point and to your question, let's just jump into Claude. I had that in front of me today, and we one of the customers we talked about in that process was Meridian Analytics, and I wrote this while we were just talking there. I said, look at my Granola notes for this company, summarize everything, so I can hand over this deal to a post sales team, a bit like the recipe that we saw earlier. Highlight some key information and some stakeholders, etc. A very quick and dirty prompt for Claude, but it's going to look again at the Granola meetings. I'm just going to give that access to the Granola meeting. So again, the way our MCP works, it's going to query Granola. It's going to look at the meetings that may be correct. And when it finds the meetings that it wants to pull information from, it's going to go ahead and get that as well. We'll just give this a couple of seconds. If not, I've
Mm.
pre-prompted this in the background while we've been waiting, so we can always jump over to it. It will take, a minute or so to fully get that context. Um,
And when it's doing that,
yeah.
we saw a minute ago that you've got the actual transcript, and then you've got like sort of the AI note. What's it looking at? Is it the sort of summary, or is it getting the raw transcript?
Yeah, so it's looking at the transcript today. If you for whatever reason don't have access to that transcript, some of our customers, delete transcripts after a while because they don't want to hold on to that. It will just grab the note instead. So
Mm.
you're not always losing out, even if you've got some kind of privacy
Okay.
stuff going on. So yeah, here it's just giving me a very quick kind of deal snapshot, etc. It's got me, of some questions to ask. And then it's asking me, hey, do you want to put this in a Word doc, or what does that look like? Like I actually followed that thread a little bit while we've been talking, and you'll see it's kind of giving me the same snapshot here. And then I got it to make me a Slack message to send to someone, just assuming we had like a quick handover here. And then you'll see here I've got this nice kind of Word doc here, which kind of covers the information in more detail. So yeah, you'll see here it's got basic information and some internal handover notes as well.
Mm.
And you can even format it for something like Salesforce, perhaps, or get different kind of. It's really as powerful as you want to kind of prompt it. I, for instance, have used our Granola Notes to build a demo tool for our internal sales team. So what that means is when they log in, I've kind of vibe coded something that says, I'm talking to a sales team. I've got 30 minutes to talk, and I'm speaking to, say, a VP of sales. It will go ahead and build like a run of show. It will tell our sales team the recipes and the templates to use, but it'll also pull the Granola context and add in any conversations they've already had with that team, and it'll kind of enrich that to tell you, say,
Mm.
yeah, you told, this person who's a VP this, why don't you go back and re-highlight that? And that's the kind of real power you can add to a lot of the stuff you're building in Claude, is you can pull in that historical context, pull in the questions you've been asked, the people, the kind of rich information that you've had in those calls, and just add all of that to everything you're already building in Claude.
Mm.
I did actually go ahead and build something in Lovable, which I think would be really interesting. So, for example, here, I've asked it to look at my Granola notes for Meridian Analytics and just come up with a small pitch deck for this fake company loop note. Again, I didn't know what this would look like, but I actually am pretty pleased with the outcome. Here, it's actually come up with a whole sales pitch. LoopNote is kind of a similar style of business to Granola, and it's come up with the kind of why Meridian, the kind of hidden tax, and again, it's kind of fitting that kind of narrative that we've had throughout a bunch of calls with Meridian, and it's yeah, it's even got the price captured the pricing that we've talked about, and I think really kind of nice way of building a deck that you can just
Mm.
almost send to a customer if you wanted to immediately.
What I it's opening up so many new use cases for transcription that it's outside of what was my original sort of world of sales calls. I need to take down all the notes and the description and everything like that, to actually, like, once you start expanding this out to customer success meetings, like product review meetings, legal negotiation meetings, finance negotiation meetings, supply meetings, absolutely everything. I think of this call transcription as like a dash cam. So, like, if you've got a dash cam on your car, you're not looking to record something specific, but when later on you need to look back at something, you've got all of the transcription there. And I think about this, like, if a company is transcribing everything, then at some point in the future, Someone in product is going to go, right, across all of our customer calls, like what are the things that customers are asking about? The general counsel is going to say, right, across all of our customer calls, like what are the things that people are pushing back on that aren't making it to legal that we could just like build an FAQ and take a cycle out? A negotiation. So it's like this dash cam. If you capture everything, then you give other people that would never have considered themselves to be consumers of call transcription, suddenly they've got access to this. And whether that's, I'm seeing lots of examples of product teams building out MVPs
I was just gonna say, yeah.
because they've sat in a room with a couple of customers. The customer has been talking, and then 8 minutes later, they're like, something like this. And how do you do that? Well, transcription into Lovable or V0, and away you go.
Yeah, that exact example happened a few weeks ago as part of a call with a customer, and one of our PMs stepped out and built an MVP in like 15 minutes or so, and then shipped it on a Slack channel just to a customer to be like, "How does it look? How does it feel?" And the customer was like, "Had you built this already?" And I was like, "No, no, just used my
But
Granola notes. I just connected it up to Claude, and off we go." It was something that we just built.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
really its speed to delivery is amazing with stuff like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
When we're doing sort of customer discovery meetings, and those might either be in person, like the example where I put the iPhone on the table. I maybe a weird analogy, but I think of like a police interview where they go, for the purposes of the tape, can you confirm your name and all of this? And I'll sort of make a bit of a joke with the clients, like, right, for the purposes of the tape, like, can you explain your process in detail? And I'm interviewing them, we're consulting, maybe we're drawing pictures on the whiteboard, but it's just gathering all of that detail and any questions that I don't understand. I'm like, can you explain that a bit more? Because you know that Granola is taking all of that. And then when we get back to building out our solution, we've got this rich content.
Yeah, exactly. I think as well, the one thing that I know we spoke about, Charlie, that I find myself doing more often is I'm kind of going into that quick note that we did at the start and just chatting to Granola about a bunch of stuff that's on my mind.
Mm,
I'm like, I've got to do this today. I want to do this. I'm thinking about this. Make sure I do X, Y, Z. And I kind of use it as a way to keep me honest, as well as
mm,
also pulling some of those ideas into tools like Claude. So, prime example again, I had to chat with someone here around the consent features we talked about earlier, and I was like, these are the last three conversations. This is my kind of like brain dump. Then I said
mm,
to Claude, take that brain dump, take a few of the customer conversations, and build me like a Notion page, summarizing everything and give me some next steps. And I
mm.
honestly, it would have taken me probably a day or two to pull that
Yeah,
together, and it took me 20 minutes or less. So yeah,
yeah.
pretty powerful.
I got tons of questions. I'm gonna focus in
Yeah.
on maybe some of the enterprise side of things. So I know the question came up about MCP earlier. Just for those that are watching that aren't familiar with MCP, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, and it's basically the way that you provide AI tools with access to information in other systems. So you can think of it as a connector. One of the reasons why we're loving using it in Claude is that whilst the Granola UI is lovely, Claude is like where the work is happening. For me because it is acting as the hub, and so it is the hub, and Granola is a lovely spoke. But Google Docs is a lovely spoke. Google Calendar is a lovely spoke. HubSpot, our CRM, is a lovely spoke. Canva, Linear, all of these spokes, and we're able to have this conversation. And while in the demo that Nick did was about having a chat in Claude and pulling in the Granola notes, the richness that we're getting when we're preparing for an upcoming customer meeting. And it's not just pulling in the Granola notes, but it's pulling in all of the deal details from HubSpot. It's pulling in the proposal that we've got in Google Drive. It's pulling in the last emails that the customer sent in. You really feel like you've got this, a real partner as you're prepping. 10 minutes to go. So that was the connector, and for sort of an individual, are you able to touch on the API, which I know is a sort of pretty recent, and then how at an enterprise level companies might be
Yeah.
thinking about that?
Yeah, so we have a couple of different APIs. So the MCP is really good at getting like quick access today. We have a personal API, which again provides a very similar experience to the MCP for perhaps users that want to, you know, build out a bunch of automations and don't want to rely on the MCP and the rate limits around that. The personal API is really good to kind of just holistically build a bunch of cron jobs that you may want to run automations on. But to your point, the enterprise kind of API is built to pull everything that we saw in that team space. So everything that's publicly available to everyone, you can ingest all of that information into, we have customers ingesting it into Salesforce, Clean, a bunch of different tools today, or just storing it in their kind of local database. One customer who has essentially built an agent for every individual employee is making all of that context available via the API, and in that agent they can kind of query a bunch of information that again in Granola is publicly available to them, but they now have additional context from their pricing solution, from their CRM, etc. That's all kind of connected in this internal agent, and it's very powerful. And if you want to know more, we have some fantastic documentation on our website that can kind of easily guide you through it. But I see a lot of enterprises moving towards that second brain initiative that we kind
Mm,
of spoke about, and the use cases end up being I either want to build an agent for my employees, or I want to build this kind of database of shared context that I want to kind of have indexable so I can do a bunch of automations or help kind of save people's time. So, you've had a meeting, let's pull some of those notes out, put that in Salesforce. So, as you said, you used to be a salesperson. I'm sure you spent a ton of time updating notes in a CRM sometime. And if you could
mm,
have gotten away from that, you would have. And people are able to now with those
yeah.
kind of notes via the API. Yeah.
Well, that is a great segue. Let me share my screen into how we're using it. So let me just go back here. I just wanted to show Nick was talking about templates earlier, and I mentioned the project launch workshop template. So this is ours. Project launch workshop. We go through introductions, how we're going to communicate with each other, how we're going to store documents, deliverables, and so on. And this is essentially a complete copy of the agenda that we run through with our clients in a Google Doc. So when the template comes through, the notes come through, it's just directly mimicking. So it's just worthwhile spending time building the template, building the agenda first for all of your internal and external meetings, and then building the corresponding template. Um, what I wanted to show in these last sort of 5 minutes is our agent hub. So this is internal to Kowalah. So you can think we've got humans in our team in an org chart, and we've got agents in our team in an org chart. And so here I am, the founder and CEO. Got Charlotte, who's human, as an operations director. And then we've got a series of different agents that we've built, both in the revenue go-to-market team, delivery, operations, and people here, and then finance over here. And we're continuing to build these out day by day. We've got a backlog of about 8 more to add into the team. Every time someone says, I need to hire someone, I'm like, we're going to build an agent first. And I'll talk about Brian because you talked about sort of sales and updating CRM. So this is Brian. Brian's an agent. You see, Brian's got an actual email address at Kowalah. So we set them up on Google Workspace. That means Brian's got email, Brian's got Google Chat, Brian's got his own Google Drive folders that he can create proposals and read various things. And it also means that our team can chat with him via GChat. So I spend a lot of time just chatting to Brian via GChat. Hey, Brian, can you update this proposal? Hey, Brian, we just got this lead in. I'll just give Brian screenshots of LinkedIn, anything. I just forward Brian emails if I get an inbound. Brian deals with HubSpot. I don't need to deal with that. Anyway, I've basically given him this system prompt here, which explains all of Brian's like roles, what he needs to do, how he should create opportunities and everything in HubSpot. Brian's got a couple of skills that he's got. And one that I want to show you is his daily deal sweep skill. So I'm busy going call to call to call, make lots of commitments to customers, go straight on to the next call, haven't done anything about those commitments. Well, at 7:30 in the morning, Brian runs his daily deal sweep skill, which involves step number one, scanning HubSpot to familiarize himself with all of the deals that are in the pipeline. Step number two, scan Granola for all of the notes that happened yesterday that I was part of. Step three, go and scan each deal's recent emails, both via HubSpot and then in my Gmail inbox. And at this point, Brian knows just as much about everything as I do, because that's what I was in those meetings, those emails. What Brian then does is then merge it all, assess it, and then go and create new deals in HubSpot where I haven't done it, or update deals where I've not done it. And so the first thing I know is at like 7:30 in the morning, I get pinged. You're the new deal owner of this. You're the new owner of this deal because Brian's set it all up. So this is Brian using the Granola API. So let me just go to tools here. Brian's got access to all of these tools, which are all kind of API connections. So Gmail, he can send and so on. He's got access to his own calendar if we invite him to meetings, access to GChat, so he can do all of these wonderful things there. In Spaces, we can mention him. Google Drive, he can create all of his own folders. And then importantly, Granola. So he can get a note, he can list notes, and he can search meetings by attendees. So if and this happens all the time, I'm like, hey, Brian, and I just chat to him like he's a member of the team. Hey, Brian, I've got a meeting with Nick at Granola tomorrow. Can you help me prep for it? I don't need to say anything other than that, but Brian will then go and look at HubSpot, we'll go and look at Granola, pull everything back and go, right, here's what I got. What do you want the theme of the meeting to be? And I'll chat to Brian a little bit, and then Brian will build out the agenda and all of these things. So Brian is really acting as an A. He can do everything other than physically go and meet that client. So we're really excited about the potential of these agents, but it's only by giving them access to tools, and in this case, through the Enterprise API, by giving Brian access to every meeting that anyone in Kowalah has been in, that has been put into the team folder. Brian's got as much knowledge about these meetings as anyone in our human team has, and it's through that API. So with that, we are nearly at time. I've got 2 minutes for a couple of lessons learned. And maybe you can add anything that you want onto this, Nick. The three things that I've really taken away from our journey so far. Number one, transcribe everything. So think of the dash cam. You don't know what the value of a meeting is going to be until later on when someone's trying to get this meetings at scale. So in our view, every meeting should be granolaed, internal and external. It's not just for the people in the meeting. It's not just a case of saying, oh, well, can't they take notes? Can't they write their own notes? It's for the people that weren't there. And like I say, it's not just better for you, it's better for the client. If I'm going to spend an hour telling you about my process, I want more than a doodle in a notepad that you're taking back to the company. Templates and recipes. So whether this is an admin in your team or someone should be responsible and kind of owning this so that we've got some consistency across the company. And then the third bit is feeding your non-human colleagues. They weren't in the meeting because they don't exist. So they definitely weren't there. So how do we feed them somehow? And this is where the Enterprise API is coming in, or potentially through the MCP. 1 minute to go, Nick. I don't know if there's anything else that you would add in as a lesson learned and some final thoughts.
Yeah, I think for me the thing that kind of resonates the most is that the kind of feature agents is really important. I think, thinking of granola as a food source is not just in the name of granola, but it is kind of fuel for your agents and your agentic workflows. And I think the possibilities are very, very like you can go and do a lot with granola and the context in granola. And I think that to think about the conversations you're having and doing more with them, I would just urge you to try and use the MCP, use a bunch of kind of the templates and recipes within Granola to try and level up the amount of work that you don't have to do almost off the back of Granola. And I think over the next year or so, you'll see a lot of tools being a lot more expansive, and I think context is going to be one of the key
Mm.
things that enables you to do more with those tools as well.
That's brilliant. Thanks so much, Nick. I mean, I started off by saying if I was asked what would happen if you could no longer use it, I would say I'm very disappointed. And hopefully, some of the stuff that Nick has shown you there it builds up as to why that's the case. Nick, thank you so much to you. Thank you to the Granola team for joining the webinar. Thanks for everyone that's joined either live or on YouTube. If you want any other support, you can find Nick on LinkedIn and obviously via the Kowalah team as well. We'll see you next week.
No worries. Thank you so much.